Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Robyn Makes Sense. Tonight, we are going to be discussing eczema. So, whether you have eczema or know someone that has, or you have a loved one, this is probably something you want to pay attention to. We'll go over the different types of eczema, proper prevention, some treatment, some home remedies, and some of the common triggers for eczema. So we'll get started. So for those that don't know, eczema is a hypersensitivity reaction of the skin by a trigger or an irritant. It is extremely itchy. Those that have eczema complain of the itch. The itch is so bad. And usually they're scratching it to the point where it starts to bleed. Now, many confuse this with psoriasis because they are very similar in the fact that they're red, rashy. They're not as itchy, just they're mildly itchy. But psoriasis is actually defect in the immune system and overproduces some of its cells. So there's two different types and they often get confused, but they're two totally different medical diagnoses and the causes are different. So eczema, usually they don't know what that causes, where psoriasis is caused by something wrong with your immune system and your body's reaction to it. So that's can be treated differently than eczema would. So tonight's topic is eczema. We're going to stick to that. And basically, eczema can be triggered by so many things. So what we know about the skin, we went through this when we did like moisturizing and how keeping skin clean and healthy is the best for it. With eczema, there's different types and they can be caused by things like allergies. It can be caused by different, clothing irritants. So we're going to go through that list, but let's start with the different types. So there's 8 types of eczema that are more common. First one, which is probably the most common, which is atopic. And this appears early in life, usually in babies. It can appear later on in life, but most commonly it appears in children. And basically, it's also very common with those that have tendencies of allergies, with asthma, hay fever, food allergies. This, which is a big list, which is why it's so common. Children get it often on their face, their neck, their ears, their torso. If it's found in adults, it's usually on the knee, on the ankle, the wrist joints, hands, and eyelids. So those are the common spots that atopic eczema has. The next one is contact eczema, which is irritants that touch the skin for long periods of time. So that's usually with clothing, with detergents, things like that. And there's hand eczema, which is of the hands, which is limited to the hands. It can also be part of atopic, and it's from repeated hand washing. Exposure to cleaning products can be caused by latex allergies. These are all reasons why you would get eczema on your hands. Which, did you ever know? So I know my mom used to get it on her hands when she was washing dishes a lot. She would get that dry, cracked skin on her fingers, and this was a form of eczema. And I forgot what she used to call it. She used to call it something else, but it was actually a form of eczema. And it gets irritated when you're doing things like that. So it also is one that does go away, and it's not as frequent. Atopic is probably the one that occurs the most frequently, and is probably triggered the most frequently. Where something like hands, it's usually because of irritants that you're touching. The next one is nummular. These are coin-sized patches on your arms, legs, and chest. This is most common in adults and can be associated with fungal infections elsewhere in the body. So you might have it on your chest, but you have, athlete's foot or something going on. You have a fungus somewhere else, but yet it's coming out. And the thing with eczema is, and with any skin irritation, is when your body has a natural way of trying to heal itself. So if there is something that's going on, an irritant that is, whether it's bacteria, something that's getting into your body, your skin, whether it's a scratch, whether it's anything, it's going to get red and irritated because it's your body's immune system reacts by sending blood flow to that area, because that's the way it heals things, is by sending oxygenated blood. And we went into that in more depth when we talked about immune health, and how that works. And so you can certainly go back and watch that. And we have all of these lives on our app, so you can certainly watch them there as well, if you've missed any. So the body is naturally going to want to fix itself, and that's what it's doing with eczema. So something's irritating it, so the immune system kicks in, it's going to go to the area, send more blood flow, which is why it gets so red and itchy and scratchy. It's all part of the healing process. So back to the different types. So the next one is acetotic. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but this one is, it dries the skin casing and causing fine cracks on the lower legs, commonly found in elderly, people that are in low humidity environments, and that are frequently indoors, because that's where they would have low humidity, dry air. When you're in your house a lot, the air is very dry, and that's what causes this. The next one is stasis, which is it's caused by it's commonly found on the calves and the ankles and the feet, and it's caused by poor functioning veins in the lower legs. So this I know I've seen on a lot of elderly people as well, because they have poor function, poor circulation, and they sometimes get these rashes and the discoloration, and all of that is a form of eczema. And then that dry, cracked skin. So it all becomes, and part of it is keeping the skin healthy. So the next one is lichen, which is caused by a nervous reaction and repeated scratching or rubbing. So if you have somebody that is constantly irritating that skin, what's going to happen, and you're constantly rubbing or scratching, it's going to cause that the skin to harden over, and then have that patchy, dry, irritant form of eczema. So eczema can be found in many different varieties. The last one on my list is seborrheic. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's what it is. And this is greasy and scaly rash known as cradle cap for infants. You know, how many babies, it was cradle cap. That was a form of eczema. Most kids grew out of it after a few months, but that was definitely a form of it. So now that we have the different types of eczema, what can we do when we get them? Or how do we get them? What's triggering it? So for one, I want to start with that these are not contagious. So that's definitely a myth that people feel that if they touch someone who has eczema, they're going to get it. And it's not caused by, it's not like a virus or a bacteria that if you're touching somebody else that has it, it's going to just spread. That's not what it is. It's something with that person's skin and immune system that's going on, and they need to get treatment for it. And the eczema on average lasts about 2 weeks, could be anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, but we'll go with 2 weeks depending on the severity. And that's about how long an outbreak would last. And then until the next trigger comes along, and then the cycle starts all over again. So now we're going to talk about some triggers. What are triggers? Dry skin. We did a live on moisturizing and skin health, and we went over the importance of having healthy, moist skin. So dry skin is a trigger for eczema. Certain fragrances, if you're wearing perfume, that could be a trigger. If your body doesn't react well to perfumes, or fragranced body lotions, or even fragranced soaps, sometimes those can be triggers. And if you have eczema, figuring out what the triggers are will help you. So introducing things slowly, one at a time, knowing if you can or can't, if your body reacts well to it, then that's something that's fine. If it doesn't, then you know that that's a trigger and that's something you should stay away from, and stay away from other things that are similar. So cleaning products can be a trigger, absolutely. So if medications can sometimes be a trigger depending on the type of medication. So you should look at the side effects of some of your medications, or even speak to a pharmacist that you may not know that your medications could be causing eczema to be worse. I'm not saying stop medications, but speak to a medical professional, whether it's your pharmacist or your doctor, to see if those are side effects, and if there's something else that you can do or take in lieu of that would may not have the same side effect. Certain materials, certain clothing materials, or blankets, pillows, wool, polyester, synthetic fibers, all of these are triggers for eczema. So if you're wearing long sleeves that are made of wool, or jackets, they can be irritating these irritants in the skin. Bacteria, certain bacteria, I guess any bacteria that gets on your skin could be an irritant. So, bacteria. Washing your hands frequently, making sure you wash and bathe, personal hygiene, keep up with that, making sure your skin is clean and moist. And one of the things with bacteria is if your skin is dry, right, it actually irritates your skin more and can penetrate your skin more than if your skin is moist. If your skin is moist and healthy, it has a way to fight the bacteria. The bacteria can't cling on to it the way that it does when it's dry. And also when your skin is dry, there's openings, there's crevices, there's cracks that you can get in. So moisturizing is a big part of keeping your skin healthy. Dust mites, dust itself, if it's prolonged. Pollen, if you're outside and pollen can be an irritant. Mold. Stress, if you are stressed and upset or worried, and you boost your cortisol levels, which can diminish your immune response and diminish everything else that's going on in your body, you can increase the likelihood that you have an eczema outbreak. Absolutely. Heat, being in a very hot, being out in the sun can irritate it, definitely. And dry air. So like in the winter, when you're in your home, you mostly have dry air. Getting a humidifier can certainly help keep that air moist. Sweating is another irritant on the skin, absolutely, because sweat also has sweat mixes with the bacteria that's on your skin. And we went over this on the personal hygiene, and it kind of farts out the smell. So there's bacteria there. If you're sweating and you just have an odor, that means that there's bacteria on your skin. And you have good and bad bacteria on your skin at all times. It's just a matter of keeping it under control, essentially, washing your hands. Certain soaps and detergents, if it leaves a film. So some of these soaps that are considered moisturizing soaps, they leave a film behind. Not all, some of them. So testing it out. Maybe before you switch soaps, test one leg with that new soap to see if you have a trigger, or because most soaps, especially the antibacterial ones, they strip your skin of all bacteria, moisture. So using a soap that's an antibacterial will strip it of everything. But then if you use a good moisturizer after, you're then keeping you're applying the moisture, which is good for your skin and keeps it healthy. So that's a huge key in preventing eczema outbreaks is moisturizer. Bubble baths are a no-no. There's too many different fragrances in bubble baths that, they're prolonged onto your skin. A lot of times there's oils in bubble baths. It depends on what you use, like these bath bombs and stuff like that. Not good for your skin if you have eczema. If you want to soak in them because of certain oils, great. That's, but if you have eczema, no, stay away. And the biggest trigger of all is foods. Certain foods that you eat are going to trigger eczema. So what are these trigger foods? So citrus fruits, dairy, eggs, wheat, soy, vanilla, cinnamon, tomatoes, nuts. These are very high trigger foods for eczema. Now, I'm not saying don't eat any of these foods, but maybe test them out. So if you're eating these foods and you don't get an outbreak, great. These foods don't bother you. They're not a trigger for you. But if you, want to introduce, maybe if you have bad eczema that you don't know what the triggers are, start from scratch, take it all away, take away all those foods, and then introduce slowly one by one to see what the trigger could be. Foods that are high in nickel are also a trigger. Some of those are beans, black tea, canned meats, chocolate, lentils, peas, seeds, shellfish, and soybeans. Those are also triggers for eczema. Sorry. So now, if you were watching the live that we did on skincare, I recommended to some people to use olive oil if you didn't, as a natural moisturizer. In this case, if you have eczema, you do not want to use olive oil. Olive oil will actually make your eczema worse. So ingesting it is one thing, but applying it to your skin as a moisturizer is a no-no. What you would use would be coconut oil. Coconut oil moisturizes. It's a great moisturizer. And it also has antimicrobial properties. So it kills the bacteria on the skin that could be causing irritation and therefore causing your eczema to be worse. So coconut oil is a good moisturizer for when you get out of the shower. And it doesn't have to be that you need to go out and buy a special coconut oil, even like the ones that they sell in the jar. If it's like pure coconut oil or coconut, because when you hold those coconut creams, they melt into an oil pretty much right away. So if it's like solid and it melts into an oil, you just want to make sure it's natural, pure coconut oil and that it's not mixed with other things, because then that might irritate you. Using things like to prevent. Okay, so now we're going to discuss some prevention. Using things like cotton blankets and clothing. Like get 100% cotton blankets and bed sheets and pillowcases and clothing, wherever you sweat, like long sleeves shirts, sweatshirts, things like that. Make sure they're 100% cotton so that you're not using synthetic fibers or wool or polyester, and therefore start reading your clothing labels. After showering, pat down your skin. Don't rub it, because that's an irritant. That can actually, rubbing your skin can cause eczema to flare up again because it's irritating your skin. You want to stay away from irritating your skin. So after you get out of a shower, pat your skin, pat it, pat, 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 and then rub on a moisturizer. Not rub, but apply moisturizer, and use a proper one, one that is like coconut oil. And there are some approved eczema moisturizers that have nothing in them and they're pretty bare bones. For me, I like to go with things that tend to be a little bit more natural, that have other properties other than just so commercial and chemical, because you don't always know what's in them. So something like coconut oil, knowing that it has other properties to kill the bacteria, that would be a good moisturizer. And keep your skin clean and healthy, because that's a big part of preventing eczema outbreaks. Is because the more you scratch, the worse it's going to get. The more irritated, the more inflamed, the more itchy. It becomes that round robin, essentially, that circle, and you don't want to do that. Use a humidifier at home. I think I mentioned this, especially in the winter when the air is dry. I recommend that for anybody, because breathing in dry air is not good for your lungs. It's not good for your allergies. It's not good for your skin. Having moisture in the air is important for so many reasons. And it does not have to be that you need to have like a crazy steam shower all the time. No, you just have some moisture. Like when you're going to sleep at night, just having a moist humidifier in the room, in the area, to just give some moist air. You ever notice that when you come out of a shower and like you had a hot shower and you just breathe so much better, you feel so much better? It's because of the moist air. It actually just, it kind of helps you. So you want to do that at night, because when you have headaches, when you have, when you're drying out all of your sinuses, your body's reaction to all that is going to be to produce moisture because it's lacking moisture. So then you're going to start with a runny nose. All right, we're getting off topic here, but essentially, yes, you want to have moist air in your home, especially in whether you live in a hot climate, or you or a cold climate and you have the heat on all the time, or even if you're in a hot climate like someplace like Vegas, their air is it's a dry heat there. So, air conditioners do have some moisture in it, so that helps. But, if you have like a little personal humidifier, I know some people have them at their desks, it doesn't hurt you at all. It's a good thing. So long as you keep it clean, because you don't want to give yourself some bad bacteria filled moist air. So make sure that's clean, and you're changing the water frequently. So we don't want to give you mold. But anyway, jewelry can sometimes be an irritant. People get eczema, from their wedding bands or other jewelry they wear, bracelets, watches, because it can be an irritant if it's rubbing against the skin. If it's high in nickel, like it could be an irritant. Avoid exposure to chemicals and cleaning products. So when you're cleaning, whether you're washing dishes or you're cleaning your house, wear gloves. Protect your skin. They have gloves that go up to the elbow, so you're not exposed and you're not irritating your skin. Elevate your legs to improve circulation. So if you're one of the people that has it on your legs, elevate your legs. Let that be a priority. Again, coconut oil, mention that, absolutely a huge help. So now what happens when you have an outbreak? So those are things for prevention, the things that you can do to prevent getting an outbreak. Once you have an outbreak, what are some things that you can do? So for one, you go to a doctor. Oftentimes they'll give you steroids, whether it's a cream to put on the area or they give them orally. The doctor will decide on to what level that you need to have a steroid. Also, sometimes they'll give you immunosuppressants. So immunosuppressants, here is something that you really need to be aware of before taking things like that are immunosuppressants, because they tell your immune system to stop, to kind of mute the trigger. So because your body is irritated by something, it sends the immune system down because it thinks that there's an injury and it wants to heal it. So it tells the immune system to stop. That's not a trigger. It's not going to allow it. But the downside to immunosuppressants, and this is something you should speak with your pharmacist and doctor about before you ask them what their view is because you want to make sure that you're not in a high risk situation where you can be getting sick and your immune system is being told to stop. So you want to avoid that. So making sure that, maybe it's not flu season, maybe it's not, there's not a lot of viruses around, something like that. You may not want to take an immune suppressant because then it's not allowing your immune system to react to a virus. And then you could be putting yourself in greater danger. And having that conversation with your doctor or pharmacist to find out what your options are is an important one. They now have UV light treatments for people that have eczema, and the UV light is said to kill the bacteria. So UV light won't work for all types of eczema, but it is found that in the common types that it kills the bacteria, it kills the germs, and therefore helps it go away sooner. And UV light treatments, if you were to go that route, knowing that the light, do your research and your due diligence before you go down that road, because there are a lot of UV light treatment centers that are not exactly giving you the medical grade UV light treatment that you would need to prevent it. So, and they can be costly. So make sure you do your due diligence before you opt into looking into something like that, or before you buy any of those home treatment ones, because the home ones, like the wands, they're not strong enough to really kill much of anything. So definitely do your due diligence. So when you had babies and they had the Cradle Cap, what did your doctor tell you? Baby oil, right? To put baby oil on it to moisturize it, and then eventually, brush it away. So using baby oil, it's for sensitive skin. That's another way of moisturizing. Baby oil, it's very light. It's not anything heavy. It doesn't have a lot of fragrances. So baby oil, test it out and see if that is something that you can use as a moisturizer. Very good moisturizer. One of my favorites is Manuka Honey. I swear by this stuff on so many levels for wound care, for internal care. There's different levels of Manuka Honey. There's different grades. You want medical grade Manuka Honey. And then within that, there are different levels. Some would be more for wound care. Some would be more for internal care. Some is more for maintenance. So you want to know exactly so for eczema, you want wound care, which is going to be 15 plus. So it's going to be a KF factor of 15 plus, which basically is a certification that the concentration is 15 plus for each dose of Manuka Honey that you have, right? So for wound care, now for those with eczema, you can take it internally and it'll help, but it'll be a slower process. If you have an outbreak of eczema, I highly recommend that you get the wound care one, which is for 15 plus, or the highest you can find on the market, medical grade, so it needs to be certified, and you want it from New Zealand, okay? Because that is the best one for wound care. Manuka honey trees in New Zealand. That's where you want to go. 15 plus. And if you have any questions, please reach out and I'll certainly guide you. So for that, Manuka honey kills the bacteria. It retains the moisture. It helps with wound care. It reduces it helps reduce the flare up from making it even worse. It has a cleansing component similar to hydrogen peroxide. Like, when you put peroxide on your wound and you see all the white and everything bubbles and you know that it's pulling out all the germs. Yeah, Manuka honey has a similar component to that, where it literally pulls out all the bacteria, all of the germs, all of the infection. And if you were to use Manuka honey, you would apply a very thin layer to the skin. Now, you don't want to reapply with the same, like if you're going to use this like a stick or, like a wooden stick or something, like one of those tongue depressors to apply it or something like that. You would not want to use the same, you don't want to double dip into the jar. Use a new one every time you put it in, because you don't want the bacteria to go in there, because it will never expire as long as you keep it clean and sanitized. Like, you're not going to double dip in there. So you would apply a very thin layer over the entire area, then cover it with bandage or gauze. Honey will melt and it will leak and it will come through. So you want to make sure that you have it properly wrapped. My recommendation would be to wrap it overnight, not during the day. I mean, if it's in an area where you can have it wrapped during the day, great. But if not, or if it's for a child, then you would wrap it, leave it on them overnight. Ways to do that, if it's like on somebody's arm or elbow, they sell scratch sleeves and mittens that are basically like sleeves. They just go up your arm, or they're mittens that cover your hands if it's for that, so that you can apply things like that, and then it holds it tight against it and the person can't scratch it. You can also keep that on during the day because they're made of cotton. And this way, when you're scratching, you can't scratch at it because the material is there. They also sell pajamas that are like that are made for both adult and for children, that you can wear to avoid scratching, right? So that you're not scratching the actual skin, making it worse. You're just scratching over it. So that can help with a little bit of control. And leave the honey on overnight. That would be my recommendation. And do that every night until it goes away. And it should clear up within depending on the severity of it. But on average, if you get it as soon as you start to see that flare up, it should be gone in a few days if you do that Manuka honey overnight, or as long as you can, and just change the bandage once a day and let that Manuka honey sit on there and pull out that bacteria. As soon as you start to get that flare up, it will make a big difference. They even sell creams with Manuka honey in it for eczema. But to be honest, I feel like the amount of money that you're going to pay for a cream, it's going to take a while for you to get it, to get the results that you want. You are better off just using the actual honey, because it's really, they call it a miracle honey for a reason. Actually, Phyllis here is somebody that I recommended to use the honey, and she's saying that it really works. Thank you, Phyllis. I'm glad that it works for you, because it really just pulls out all the garbage, essentially. So I recommend it. And, you know, again, use scratch sleeves or mittens to hold if it's for young children. Foods that you can eat to help get rid of eczema or prevent it ongoing is one of them, which is a huge favorite of mine, which is a probiotic. I actually am doing a caregiver webinar on Wednesday night about the effects of probiotics in the body, where I'm going to be diving deep into it. But this is definitely one of the things that'll be on there. Probiotics, people look at them as like, oh, is this fiber? Is this going to make me go to the bathroom? It does not. That's not what a probiotic is for. It helps your gut health and have the good it helps you keep the good bacteria in your gut happy and healthy, and which produces, so when you're eating fruits and vegetables and vitamins, anything with vitamins in it, it helps, it kind of creates a better version of that vitamin that you just ate. So when you take probiotics, you want to make sure it has a prebiotic, or eat something that's a prebiotic food like a banana. And you want to take probiotics after a heavy meal so that the pill breaks down in the intestine. Now they have probiotics that are gummies. They're not as effective. You want to make sure that you have it in pill form, and you want to make sure that it has at least 10 billion cultures. Now, some of them will have like, say, 3 billion cultures, but you got to take it 3 to 4 times a day. That's fine, as long as you're getting at least 10 billion within a day, and you're taking it after food. For me, I'd rather take one pill, one and done. And probiotics help with immune health. There's so many positive things for probiotics that I will dive in deeper to on Wednesday. If you're interested, register for the caregiver webinar. It's caregiverwebinar.com, and you can, you know, learn all about that. It's free. Just a presentation on probiotics, but you could also watch the video we did on gut health, and where I dive a little bit into probiotics as well. Some other foods to eat for preventative is the omega-3 fatty acids, which is usually fish. So fish helps with because omega-3 fatty acids have an anti-inflammatory property in them. Some other foods that help reduce inflammation are apples, broccoli, cherries, spinach, kale, and pretty much any other, you know, foods that are high in inflammation fighting flavonoids. And that would help with the eczema. So, if anybody has any questions, I'm certainly willing to answer them now. And again, I'd like to just mention the webinar again. If you would like to register, please just go to caregiverwebinar.com. And there's a different topic every Wednesday. It's a presentation through a Zoom meeting. It's not a live on Facebook. And I'm happy to have you there. It's free. Just go and register so you get the information and go from there. And for those that have not downloaded the app yet, I highly encourage you to do that. All the lives that I do are saved to the app. Once you download the app, just register, and then you'll see, once you register, it'll open up a bunch of information, including all of our lives, our blogs, some other tidbits of information that we've been putting in there, and we're just adding content more and more every day. So I encourage you to do that. You can find it in the iTunes or the Google Play Store. Just look for Wellness Resource Support, and you'll see our little icon, which is right here. And you know, just download it. I highly encourage. So on that note, I will thank you all for being here, and I hope to see you on the caregiver webinar. Have a good night, all.